what I'm going to do now is talk to you a little bit about how to have a better outcome in particular situations, maybe conversations or relationships. And one of the strategies, one of the skills I've been learning is something called having a non-defended learning conversation. What that basically means is how do we show up in ways that we don't railroad over each other, where both sides feel that they've been heard, and where our common goal is a productive or at least a peaceful outcome. It's really embracing one of the stances of contemplative dialogue, which is nonviolence. And to show up in a nonviolent way means that I'm not just concerned about what it is I have to tell you. I'm not just trying to manipulate the conversation in a way that doesn't honor the sacred worth of another individual, but instead it allows an openness and a truly honest dialogue between two people, or in some cases a larger organization. So there are actual steps that you can take to sort of check yourself and to create an environment in which honest and authentic communication can occur. The first thing is to really take stock in your own self. How are you showing up to this particular meeting or conversation? There's times when I approach somebody and I know full well what it is I want to communicate. And I'm not necessarily showing up in a way that invites any listening or honest dialogue. And sometimes it's subtle. It takes me a while sometimes to realize that I really do have an ulterior motive, that I'm listening for certain things and steering the conversation in a particular way to get my end result. So, take stock in myself is the first thing, noticing defended situations and energy. There's also times that I have been invited into a situation and I've noticed that I feel very tense or awkward, where I'm afraid to say something. Maybe I'm fearful. That could be a sense, becoming aware of that and then being able to later acknowledge that is an important step in being authentic in a conversation. So once we've noticed defended energies in ourselves, fear, anxiety, a sense of wanting to control, it's important that we take a long, compassionate look at a situation. What this can mean, at least for me, is actually slowing down in the conversation. I have a tendency to be a fast speaker, so for me, it actually means slowing down my speech, taking some time between sentences, and actually processing what's being said as well as giving some thought before I say something. So a long, compassionate look. This isn't about beating myself up for here I am again, anxious and nervous, but it's just taking an honest look at the situation. It also allows me to think about what does this look like from another perspective. So this taking the time, slowing the pace, taking a long, compassionate look is really important after we've noticed some defended energies within ourselves. One of the other stances, ways to show up in a non-defended learning conversation, is to really hold all parties non-violently. Sometimes in a meeting or in a conversation, we might become aware that we really don't like the other person, that we want to get through this interaction as quickly as we can. We might be holding the other person with a sense that we're suspicious of them and wonder what their ulterior motives are. Any of that emotion or biases that we may bring into the conversation is going to become a roadblock to authentic conversation. So it's real important that we become aware of how we're feeling about the other person, but holding them in a non-violent way. It doesn't mean that they still won't maybe bother us, but that we allow ourselves some space to think about that other person in a non-violent way. Another step is if we have become aware that we're feeling tense or anxious, the fourth step is to actually begin to voice what it is what it is that we're feeling. So one of the skills I'm learning is to become more comfortable to say, you know what, notice I'm feeling really anxious in this conversation, or I don't really like where this is going or how I'm feeling about this. Or I've noticed that our voices are getting louder and I wonder if we want to take a break. So really being more honest and bringing some of that forward. The last step, the fifth step in having a non-defended conversation is learning how to die to outcomes. This is perhaps the biggest challenge for me. I don't know if it's because I'm trained as a teacher, but I suspect that has a lot to do with it. I'm also married to an engineer, and so there are usually very specific and quick ways of achieving a goal. And one of the things that's important to me that I value highly is having a goal, having a desired result from an interaction. I like that sense of completeness, of success. I mean, success to me is about finishing a project or completing a product. But when I hold that outcome for in a conversation, when I think to myself, I want to talk to this person at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, and by 10:15 I want them to do things the way I want them to do it, that's an outcome that I'm holding, and it can actually get in the way of an authentic or honest conversation. So, and I begin to find myself in a Model 1 stance very easily. So dying to outcomes. Now that doesn't mean that I don't want to see eventually something result from a conversation, but it's a matter of holding it more lightly and also being honest. I think that's a huge piece, is to say, I'm really hoping that at the end of this, we come to this conclusion, but if you're not ready to do that, then I need to accept that. But being honest about what it is, what outcome I'm looking for, and rather than have that be an undercurrent in a conversation. So hopefully that's clarified a little bit on those deliberate steps that we can take toward a non-defended learning conversation.